right, so for this video in our felony defense series, going to talk about the most important component of it, and that is a plea deal. Now, the vast majority of criminal defense cases are going to end in a negotiated plea deal. And the reason for that is that the plea deal minimizes your risk. It's either going to guarantee that you don't go to prison, or it's going to minimize the amount of time. So the big thing we have to take into consideration, whatever you're charged with, no matter how stupid you think that it is, or no matter how much proof you think is on your side, there is always a risk that you're going to lose it, okay? And with a felony defense, the lowest level felony in Arkansas is a D felony, and the max on that is 6 years in prison. So if we're going to roll the dice and go to trial, you're either going to win it or lose it. And then you could go to prison for potentially 6 years. And then the different punishment ranges go up for the more serious felonies. So we're constantly dealing with this risk-reward decision. Is it worth the risk of prison time to go in and have your voice heard? Is it worth the risk of prison time to go in and put on your evidence? And that's why the vast majority of these are going to end in some sort of a plea deal. Let's talk about the components of it, what's good about it, what's bad about it. Our standard deal is we can get probation, and then we'll have we're going to have fines, then we're either going to have community service or some sort of classes, anger management, whatever. And a standard term of probation is 5 years. Sometimes it's 6, sometimes we can get it down to 3 or 4, but just plan on it being 5 years. All right. So let's talk about what's good about probation, what's bad about it. So obviously the biggest benefit, you're not in prison, and that's the best part. All right. But there are rules that you have to follow when you're on probation, and you are at risk while you're on probation. And so what I've told my clients all along, once you get the probation, they can get you for violating the probation. And then if you commit a new crime, the max penalty for that new crime is the max of whatever you pled to in probation. So the example I use all the time is a joint in the car. So let's say you got pulled over tomorrow, you got a joint in the car, it's no big deal. I can get it taken care of, get it pled down to something, pay a fine, get it expunged. It's easy, okay? But let's say we pled to a 5-year probation deal on a D felony, all right? Now you get arrested for that joint. Now the max penalty for that joint is 6 years in prison, the same as that underlying charge. And so what it's going to do is you had your probation, and when you got arrested for having the joint, it's going to reopen that case. It's called a revo. Then you're going to have the new case. So you're going to have 2 cases, 2 sets of fines, 2 sets of court fees, attorney's fees. And if you keep doing this, you're going to get into this endless cycle of just fines and fees and court appearances. Now, the judges and prosecutors will say that's not their job, that's not what they want, but I've seen it firsthand. That's what they're going for. They want you in the system, and they never, ever want you out in it. And some are worse than others, but over at White County, they will target you when you're getting close to being done with probation so they can catch you on something else and then get you back into it. So what I tell everybody, and you're going to hear this speech quite a few times, it's really not my job to win the case, beat the charge, that sort of thing. But my job is make sure that we get you out of this cycle and you're never in. So we need to understand what you're agreeing to when you do probation. So first off, this sucks, but you pre-consent to a search of your house and home at all times. There's just no getting around it. It's just standard. Then you're going to have to report to your probation officer, and it's usually once a month. And some are better than others. Some are total assholes. And you're going to get started for a while, the officer's going to be fine, everything's going good, then they're going to switch, and then you're going to have an asshole who's just trying to catch you doing something wrong. They can drug test you at any time. And if you have an issue with drugs, we need to talk about that and have a very in-depth conversation about it. Because if you fail that drug test, then they can open up that revo, and then you're facing prison time. Having a medical marijuana card usually doesn't help you on probation. It depends on which court we're in, but a standard provision of it is we can't violate any federal law. So a lot of judges take the position of, well, even if you have a medical marijuana card, you're still violating federal law. So that's going to be a revocation. And they're going to be looking for these ways to find you to violate it so they can just keep extending the period and never get you out. So whenever we do a probation deal, we calendar halfway through it. So if it's 5 years, we calendar 2.5 years. So if you got your fines done and everything's done, we can move to terminate it early. And we always want to terminate it early because the sooner we can get you out of it, the sooner you're out of that heightened risk. And then once we're done with that, we can see about getting it all expunged, getting the arrest record sealed, all that good stuff. Now, we also have the First Offender Act in Arkansas, and it is a really good one. So basically, you're going to plead to the felony, and we're going to get through this period of probation. Then once you're done with it, it's automatically expunged. So that's great, but the prosecutor has to agree to it and the judge has to agree to it. So there's some places like over in White County, just as a matter of course, they don't do first offender. That stinks, but it's just something that we have to deal with, and it's something that we have to go through. But where we're looking at, if we're going to take a deal, we're going to have a strategy with you to get through it and to get that expungement. And we have that in our pricing structure. So when we're telling you it's best for you to take this probation offer and let's do it, we're going to see you through to get you done with it. Not like other folks that are just trying to get you to sign a deal and be done with you. Because I take it, you hear this all the time, you're trusting me with your freedom. And I'm not going to have you sign a piece of paper that's just going to put you at risk of losing that down the road. But we're going to have those serious conversations. We are going to get a plea offer in your case. It may not be what you love, but we are going to get one. And especially if it gets down to probation only, we're going to take a long, hard look at it. And depending on what you're facing and what your history is, even if it has some time in it, it still might be a much better decision than taking the chances to go to trial. But again, our job is to make sure you have all that in front of you. If you understand all that risk, but you want to pass on the deal and you want to go to trial, then we're going to go in and we're going to kick ass with everything that we have. Just understand there's always that risk of losing trial, which we'll discuss in the next video. Thanks.